I would like to start by welcoming everybody to another segment of our North Country Live summer series. We want to thank you for your time and your interest in our summer program series. And tonight we're really excited to have Kyle Johnson presenting for us. Kyle is part of our college, our North Country College, and he is the Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing. And he is originally from Minnesota, and he's been joining us in New York, and we're hoping he's loving the Adirondacks. We're loving having him be with us in the enrollment department and such. So Kyle is going to be talking tonight about telecommuting in our new and virtual world. So we're really excited to learn how to do this. Just as a couple of housekeeping things, I would like to say that we're going to keep everybody muted during the presentation just to keep the background noise and such down. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that. At the end of Kyle's presentation, we will open it up for questions. So if you have a question, you can either write it in the chat or save it for the end. But without further ado, let's learn about telecommuting in this virtual world. Take it away, Kyle.
All right, thank you, Selena. Hopefully everybody can hear me as well as we can. I'm a ways away right now, but I'd like to welcome you tonight and just give you a little bit more of my background and maybe that'll help show why I'm talking about this evening. So I'm Kyle Johnston. I work at North Country Community College, but I am telecommuting right now, and I am joining you from the great state of Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. Just back for a little bit of well, not R&R. It's work from home telecommuting. So I'm practicing what I preach, and so hopefully you can take a few things away. Some technologies that might help you out, and then we'll talk about some etiquette too. So you might glean a few things that maybe might make you not look foolish at times, because we've all kind of been there in web meetings where you maybe do some things that are not the best. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we're actually gonna have a little bit of fun with that. We will open it up at the end just to chat a little bit about some of the things that are coming in the future, and I'm kind of eager to hear what other people have, what kind of things they've come across in their remote work, because we all share stories, and sometimes they're kind of funny. I was with a group today that was talking about some of the things we've seen in meetings. Just because I was in one that started off the day that was pretty much every faux pas that you could do, it all happened. I mean, it was almost like it was staged. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So we're going to cover a few things, and I tried to organize things based off of the bullet points that you see on the left-hand side. So we're going to talk about some of the changes that have happened, and some of what we think are going to be some of the new norms when we come out of our pandemic and all the other things that are going on. We're also going to talk about the two main types of video sessions that are available to people, and kind of the pros and cons of each one of them. So this is kind of geared towards those of you that might be hosting, and then also just for people that partake in video sessions. What are some of the things you can do to make it a richer experience? We'll talk a little bit about technology. We'll talk about some of the top apps and some of the ones that people are using, and that environment is changing like every day. So if there's some that I've missed, please let me know, because I think I know everything, but I also know that I don't. So let me know if there's something else that's cool out there that we should be checking out. We'll also talk a little bit about overall etiquette, security, and just how to be successful if you're a host or just part of a web meeting, because there are some definite do's and don'ts that we're all learning along the way. And then we'll finish up with just talking about what's next. Like I said, we'll be coming out of this at some point, and things are changing, and it'll be a definitely a different work environment for a lot of people. When we come out of the pandemic and people start moving back to offices or not moving back to offices. So we'll chat a little bit about that. And also, if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We can stop while I'm presenting and talk about those as a group. So feel free to shoot your questions across to us as I'm rolling through the slides. Okay, let's go. All right. So the world's changed a bit in the last couple months. You've probably noticed that. And we've had to adapt, not just businesses, but higher education in general, retail. Everything has had to change in one way, shape, or form. And with that, I think I'm an optimist. I think things have actually gotten better in a lot of ways, where people have had to rethink how they do business and how they conduct their customer service and things like that. So I speak from background in higher education, but I also still have two businesses that I run in Minnesota here too that were affected. So I have kind of that side and some of the things that we've had to, or some of the adjustments we've had to make there too. So we've all had to adjust. And I think we're getting better at remote work. Definitely the technology has gotten better over the last couple months. In fact, I would say that the technology has gotten better over the last couple months, more so than the last 10 years. It's been leaps and bounds as far as what people can do, the level of security that a lot of the big companies that offer these services, they've had to really upgrade a lot of things. So we've been doing that in quick fashion, and I think we're in a better spot. So as you know, right now we're dealing with pandemic, and there's a lot of social unrest out there in some of our major cities and even some of our mid-sized cities. We're in the Midwest. We've definitely seen it in Minnesota. A lot of it started here earlier this summer. We're in an election year and all the fun that comes with that. So it's definitely a year that we'll all remember. So people are staying home, and people are working from home, and they're teaching their kids from home and things like that. So it's not that people are just working. There's a lot of things that they're trying to do out of their homes right now, and people have had to really learn how to do that and the time management that comes along with that. So just like our college, organizations are having to really re-envision what they do for customers. Speaking from experience at the college, we've had to go from an environment where we really like to be face-to-face with people. We really like to have that personal contact with the students and their parents, and that's a big part of who we are. So just like a lot of the other businesses out there, we've had to figure out, how do you do that in a virtual setting? And you can do that. You're just not going to be sitting across the table. You can be sitting 1,500 miles away, like I'm doing right now. So you can still make things very personal. You can still do a good job for people in customer service. It's just a little different than it was before. The other thing that we've seen is that people are really changing their behaviors and their expectations. So if you think about a lot of the entities that you deal with, and our college is just the same. We've got much better customer service hours than we had before. We've got people that are answering emails and phone and chat and text messages now in the evenings and on the weekends. And a lot of businesses have had to do that and have figured out a way to do that, so that a lot of people, if they're super busy during the day, maybe they can only get a hold of you at 8 o'clock at night, and you got to be there for them. So I think a lot of entities have really had to change the way that they conduct customer service, and that, if it's carried forward, is going to be a great improvement for the future. And all along the way, this really leads us to best practices that are really coming out of the work that people are having to do to figure this out. And I like to tell people quite often in our meetings that this pandemic did not come with a playbook, and we've all had to plan, but carry out plans right along the way. So you might be planning something the same day, and then taking care of it later in that day. So it's something that people have had to adjust, and I from what I've seen, I think people are doing a very, very good job of it. When businesses don't do a good job of it in this day and age of social media, you hear about it right away, and everybody else does too. So people are very, very quick to fix things along the way. So I really think that we're coming out of this with better practices as organizations, and really revolutionizing the way that we conduct our business. All right, so I had mentioned that there's really two different types of virtual sessions, and we're going to keep things really topical, kind of an overview of these types, and we'll talk about what might be the best type of virtual session to use based off of what your audience is. So the two that we'll talk about are webinar sessions and video conferencing. So webinar sessions are exactly what we're doing right now. I'm talking to a group that could be 10 people. It could be 500 people. It really wouldn't change on my end. We maybe have some more questions coming in on the chat, but that's about it. So it's really more of a broadcast where you have content, information that you want to get out to potentially a really wide group, a large group. But with that, the communications are one way for the most part. So, it's used more so for an audience that's external. So it's a lot of times people you don't know. So, and people that might be outside of your organization. So that's a more typical setup for a webinar. The back and forth is limited, but you can still do some. And usually what you see with a bigger group is you'll have somebody that facilitates, and you'll ask people to use a Q&A feature or a chat feature to ask their questions. And then that facilitator can, stop the host. Let's have let's talk about the questions. Let's get through those. And you can make it a little bit interactive. And that's during a regular webinar session. And that's very traditional. Webinars have been around for a long time. So we kind of moved from the webinar type of thing to something that's a little better, I think. And that's video conferencing. So we will be doing that in this session. We're starting out as a webinar, and then towards the end, we're going to move it over to a video conference, and then we'll be able to make it a little more interactive for everybody. So typically, video conference is used for slightly smaller groups. Typically, you might not know everybody, but they're probably within your organization or the same industry, that type of thing. And it's very two-way. So all along, you're seeing everybody. They're chatting, they're talking. So it is more of a format that can really be a simulation of a round table where you're really trying to, in a virtual setting, do what you normally would do in a boardroom, that sort of thing. And when you have those interactions going back and forth, many of you are probably in a position right now where you're in these types of conference call or video conferences much of the day. It's not just presentations, it's doing our work. So when I reach out and I'm working with admissions or financial aid or our web and marketing team, it's not me just talking to them, it's us as a work group working together as though we were sitting in the same room. And that's what you get out of video conferencing. And that's something that we'll talk about technology in a few minutes. That's something where the companies that build those platforms, those applications and programs, have really made a lot of strides, great strides over the last 4 months. And I think they're going to continue to do so because that environment has gotten very competitive. Everybody wants to be the biggest and best web hosting type of company, So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll mention some of those companies next. Okay, so this slide I had a little fun with. So the top apps that cool people are using, and that's just totally my opinion. I'm probably not cool anymore. I'm 41, so there's a lot of things that teenagers and our college students are using that I probably have not heard of yet. So take it for what it's worth. But there's really two different types of softwares and applications that are available. So you have the really big ones, like what we're using tonight. That would be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, which is also Skype for Business, WebEx, which has been around forever, and then some completely web-based softwares that are not softwares, applications, Join Me and GoToMeeting. And I kind of laughed earlier when I was putting this together because when I got into my 2 o'clock today, which was the dry run for this session, I started thinking, and I realized I had already been in 4 different types of meetings today. I started off with a Zoom meeting, and then I had 2, maybe 3 Microsoft Teams meetings. Then moved into a Join Me meeting with some folks that are external to the college, and had a GoTo meeting, and then circled back and I was on a Zoom meeting, and now I'm on a Zoom meeting right now. So in a day, there's 7 or 8 different online meetings and using different applications, all of which have their own different quirks. So you have to get to know them, and especially if you're a host using different platforms, you have to kind of get to know, and there's a little different language, different buttons, things like that, with all of the majors that are out there. But then there's a kind of a secondary tier that people are using too that aren't necessarily the biggest. They have a lot of people that use them, but they're not used as widely, I'd say, in business industry organizations. Those are the online and social apps. So when you get into that realm, you're talking Facebook Live, Instagram Live, Google Hangouts, which I believe used to be called Duo, FaceTime, TikTok Live, WhatsApp, and Marco Polo. Those are just the ones that were on the top of my mind, but there's probably a bazillion more. There are a lot of them out there, and it depends on different countries have ones that they primarily use, different demographics too. So your person that's using the WhatsApp is going to be a different person that's using Facebook Live. Those are totally different demographics, different ages that use those apps. So there's a lot of them out there, and it's really interesting because I hear of some, I think I'm in the know, and I'm always hearing of things that I have no idea what that is. And then I check it out, and then I try to figure out if it's something I could use in my day-to-day life, for business, for college, personally, and decide if I want to try using it or not. So that's a really interesting thing. So one thing that I'd like to ask of you is, since we're talking about the apps and the software, if there's anything you've heard of out there that's up and coming and not part of my list, drop it into the chat so we can take a look at that a little later. So now we're starting to move towards something that's a little more. All right. And I feel that it's important to talk about etiquette, security, how to be successful in your online meetings, because we've all been there. We've maybe been the brunt of a joke, or we've been in a meeting where people forgot that they were on video or weren't muted, those types of things. And so the things that you see on Facebook and YouTube where people are not doing a good job of this, that's very real. Those of us that are online all day, we see it. And it was really funny for me this morning being on a big statewide Zoom meeting and kind of watching everybody, and all of the things that you just shouldn't do happened, and I couldn't believe it. And these are very professional people, and we had everything from kids screaming to dogs barking to people not muting themselves and saying some pretty snarky things about the people that were actually presenting and didn't realize that. We had some technological difficulties with the hosts that were handing things back and forth, and with some of the people that were on, because they weren't able to jump in and really check out their technology before they started. So people were having trouble with audio and visual and things like that. So I kind of sat back and I thought, what a day to start off with that, and then get to talk about those things, in the evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about etiquette and how to be successful. And another very important one, that's security. So we'll start with that. So if you're a person that's setting up meetings and you're hosting, one of the things you have to think about is which app, and I would say two things. What are you most comfortable with, and what offers the level of security that you need? So sometimes you're just broadcasting something out. It's not controversial. You're just getting information out there. Then it's fine to have a public forum or web meeting where you basically post a web address that people click on. They jump in. It's not protected by any passwords or codes or anything like that. Anybody out there can jump in. That gets scary if you're talking about anything where you might get some opinions. And then you have to think about, do we need a layer of security where people have to log in? Many of you noticed when you signed up for this event that there was an RSVP process that we spent a lot of time putting together, because we had to weigh out, do we just make it completely public and take on the risks associated with that, or do we want people to sign up? And we wanted people to sign up just to make sure that people that are jumping into our meetings are there for the right reasons. And we've all heard about Zoom bombers, and Zoom bombers are a very real thing. So that's the last thing you want to have happen if you're a host, because that can really throw some issues into your presentation and can get ugly very fast. So you really have to think about what kind of security you want and how do you want to authenticate those people that are jumping into your meeting. The other thing that's really smart is to have a co-host or a facilitator. So if you're the person that's on screen, like I am right now, it's a good thing or a good practice to have somebody that's behind the scenes that can be monitoring a chat. They can be letting people into the sessions. They can be dealing with technological issues as they pop up, because that's the last thing you want to do as a host, is try to troubleshoot somebody's microphone that's on the other end, not knowing what type of machine they're on or phone they're on or anything like that. So it's nice to have somebody in the background that can help you out with those things. So those are just a few things that that will help you out if you're a host. Next thing that I'd like to mention is I think very important for the North Country and the North Woods where I'm at. Sometimes your data or your cell phone, if you're using an app on your phone, you might not have the best reception. In your home, if there's other people that you're sharing your Wi-Fi with, somebody's gaming in the next room or streaming Netflix, whatever, they're stealing your bandwidth. Wi-Fi could be sketchy. So a lot of times if you have any issues with that, it is best to use a hardwired device. So if you have a computer, laptop, tablet, if you're able to actually plug in with it so you can make sure that you have internet connection the whole time, it makes it so much better. Because the worst thing is to lose your audio or to start getting really choppy during your presentation. So hardwire if you have any issues. Another thing that's important is to show up early. I always tell people, if it's the first time you're using an app or a particular device, plan on 10 to 15 minutes. And every app will change based off of the device that you're using. So if you're using a laptop or tablet or phone, Zoom is going to act a little bit different. So you can't take that for granted. So I always tell people, show up early, test things out. You also want to make sure that if you have, like right now I'm using earbuds, and I'm using an actual camera that's a 4K camera that's plugged in. And some people use things that way. Some people have integrated cameras and mics in the device they're using, especially if it's a phone or a tablet. But you want to make sure that all those things are set up in advance. So always check your settings. There's always going to be a button there, and it's usually a sprocket. You can click on that, and usually most of the softwares that are out there, they'll have a testing feature where you can actually talk in, make sure that your sound is tip-top, and you can also see yourself on the camera to make sure that everything is squared up and you've got the right lighting and everything like that. Another smart thing to do is check your surroundings. You can't see right now, but I've got a couple cats in here, and I wanted to make this as real as possible, so I invited my cats. So you could potentially have children around and animals and other people in your household that they need to know that you're in a web session. So check your surroundings, and if possible, use a background. With Zoom, I'm not able to use one of my custom backgrounds right now because it requires a green screen behind you. But a lot of the others, you can just pick whatever you want. So if you want to have a nature scene behind you, that's great. Or your dog and cat, you can do that. You can have fun with it. And I've seen people having a lot of fun with that. A lot of times on mine, you'll see Lego Star Wars, and that's just because I'm kind of a nerd. So people are having fun with that, and it shows your personality because we're all working from our homes. Right now I'm not wearing a suit and tie. Maybe a couple months ago would have done that, but that's not how it is anymore. Now people wear your favorite shirt, look professional, but I think people have kind of relaxed the expectations in web meetings. So when you're a host, make sure you square up. You have good lighting. Right now in my home office studio, my lighting is actually the flashlight on my cell phone. So lighting wasn't really good, so I turned that on so you could all see me. So those are things that you have to keep in mind. You want to be looking straight on or slightly up. That's another thing. People don't like it if you're looking down on them. It's a real thing. So keep that in mind, and typically shoulders up. Another helpful thing that I've found is a lot of times your devices, they'll have a speakerphone, but sometimes most of the time that's not going to give you the best audio. So what I tell people to do is use some earbuds, which you can usually pick up for 10, 15, 20 bucks. Other people, if you're on a lot, might want to invest in a headset with a microphone. So some people have the actual headsets, and that'll give you the actual best audio experience. And for the people that are listening on the other end, they'll thank you. So depending on the app, there are a lot of different features that they come with, and it just depends on if it's a real strong app or what I'd call a lighter app, where it's just basically using audio and video. So when you're using the Zooms and Microsoft Teams and things like that, they're going to have features that are chat, hand raising, Q&A sometimes is what it's called, so that when you're going back and forth, the most clunky thing in web meetings is when people are talking over one another. And if you get a bigger group and maybe people that aren't used to using web meetings, you can step on each other's feet real quickly. So that's where it's really nice to use the chat and hand raising and Q&A, because you can raise your hand and you can then be called on by the facilitator to ask your question or make your comment. And it just makes for a better experience for everybody, because a lot of us, we've been in those meetings where everybody talked over everybody and it got really frustrating. Using those features will help you eliminate as much of that as you possibly can. Next, wear pants. There's some really obvious things when it comes to etiquette, and they can be shorts, but wear pants. That's a thing that you see on the internet quite often, where people get caught not thinking. Don't bring your device with you into the bathroom. We've seen that too online, where people don't think and they forget they have cameras and they bring their devices into weird places. Don't do it. Just commit to your desk or your couch or a bench outside and stick with it. And just always be mindful that people are looking at you, even though you might be an hour into a meeting and you forget that. So be smart with it. And then the most important thing, mute. And that's another thing that people forget. Like I said, I witnessed that earlier today, and it caused some weirdness between a few colleges, where if you're not talking, mute. And you might think it's quiet in your background, but you'd be surprised that your mic can pick up a fan that's in another room, or it can pick up a washer or dryer that's downstairs. It will pick those things up, and it'll have a rattle or a hum, and it'll drive people nuts. Or you will say things that you don't intend for 200 people to hear. So mute. All right. So now we're going to move into what I call the virtual conference part of our session, where I want to hear from you. I've thrown some questions together on here just for discussion purposes, because we're all learning. I've been doing remote work part-time for over a decade, about 12 years. Granted, not 100% of the time like it is right now, but I always did usually 1 to 2 days a week from home. So, so there's some things that I've seen along the way that have changed, but now, it's really picked up steam. Things are changing very, very quickly. So we don't know what tomorrow is, but it's fun to talk to people about what their experience has been thus far and what they think is coming in the future. So people will be able to see each other, and they'll be able to ask questions. So I'll just get us started with a couple things that were on my mind when I was putting this together, and then we can take it from there. So when we come out of this, things will be different. We know that. People will be wanting more flexibility. Granted, there's a lot of people that are going a little stir crazy right now because they went from 100% in an office to 100% at home. We're going to have to strike a balance there. Because it is nice to come together in a face-to-face setting when you can. But at the same time, we're not going to completely come out of this. There's people that will be coming back to work, but it'll be in stages, and some people will be willing to, and some will not be willing to if they especially have pre-existing conditions. So what is that going to look like? I think it's going to be very, very different. We're also looking at a lot of people were punching a clock before. And how do you punch a clock when you're working like this? And, so I can speak, from the experience with my teams. Now we look more at objectives and what are the things that you're getting done, and doing check-ins to talk about those things. People are flexing their time. They're realizing that, hey, there's more people that want to talk to me between 5 and 7 o'clock at night than 8 and 10 in the morning. So people are flexing their time to better accommodate customers and students, any constituent that they're working with. So kind of moving towards, what are you doing versus how long are you doing it? Businesses and organizations are looking at the effectiveness of people that are working remote and their efficiency. And what we're finding, a lot of us, are that people are doing better work. And I think before, the mindset was that people would not. If they're at their home, there's too many other things going on. There's life gets in the way, but I think they're finding that people are working smarter hours. They're getting more done. And you can multitask. So if I'm sitting here doing a session right now, I can have my laundry going. And that's awesome, because I'd rather not do that on the weekend or during the few evening hours that I have each day. So effectiveness and efficiency are things that organizations are looking at already right now and are realizing. And by realizing that, they're looking at their overall costs and potentially lowering overhead. I saw earlier this week, I was reading an article, and it was a study where they were looking at some of the businesses now that have been in a virtual format for 4 months or over 4 months. And some of them are finding, on average, they were spending 11% less. So if you're spending less and you feel like you're getting more out of your employees, that's going to change the way that you structure the work environment. So a lot of entities are looking at that to really try to frame up what their business is going to look like in the future. And most are going to change. There aren't a lot of businesses that are going to go right back to how things were before, because there have been some good things that have come out of us working from home or working from our backyards or working from the cabin or whatever makes you efficient and happy. So anyway, that was just a few things that I just wanted to throw out there just to get the conversation started. This is the end of my formal part of the conversation or the presentation. So I want to hear from you. And if you have any questions too, I can help to answer them, whether it's a techie thing or a big picture thing like what we were just talking about with what's coming down the pipeline. So,
hey, Kyle.
Yes.
We have had Lauren ask a question in the chat.
Okay.
She says she's curious what jobs you see as lending themselves well to the remote environment.
That's a great question. And without a doubt, it's customer service. So what you're seeing when you are, you think about your own experience. If you're trying to troubleshoot something, you're having troubles with your cell phone or the plan, you're calling your power company or you're calling your favorite college. You're talking to people that are typically sitting in their living room or at a second bedroom like I'm doing right now. And so the customer service area is where I think that we're going to see a lot more of that flexibility. Also that is something that can be done very easily from home. You think about industry and manufacturing and other types of business that are out there. It's not so easy, but customer service, you can do it from home where you're comfortable. And honestly, if you're comfortable and you're happy, you are going to be able to do a better job for the people you're working with. And you can multitask because you can be doing a video conference like this and jump to a phone call, then text message with somebody, then hit your chat feature and respond to that. And you can be taking care of all of those different channels at one time. So those are some things in customer service that I think I don't think we're going back to people sitting in cubicles in a lot of those companies. Great question. Facilitator, are there any other questions or comments?
At this point, that's the only one that's in there right now. But feel free to ask any questions, unmute yourself and have fun.
So I would like to add to that. So the other places that besides customer service at North Country, I'm the HR director for North Country Community College. We have a lot of our areas that are doing remote telecommuting right now. Payroll, benefits. We also have the Office of Student Life. And so there are a multitude of places that are able to do telecommuting right now. And just going back to what Kyle had said before, it is working absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The other thing to mention is processing. Processing is, as long as your everything is electronic, you know, file sharing, storage, things like that. If those things are on virtual servers, you know, you can do that from anywhere you want to. So a lot of entities are doing a lot of their processing from home too.
I have a question. Do you feel that with people working remotely, they are being asked to do more than what they previously were responsible for? And do you think that there needs to be a balance of multitasking? Because I know multitasking can tend to take away from one event that you're focused on when you shift over to focusing on another. How do you suggest balancing that?
Yeah, and I think that really depends on the individual. You know, some people are, you know, really have to be focused in on one thing, you know, and if there's other noise happening, you know, it can kind of take them out of their rhythm. Whereas there's other people that want to be a busybody and want to be working with 3, 4, 5 people in a chat at any given time, and answering an email and things like that, because the day kind of flies by when you're that kind of busy. I think it comes down to time management for people. Like I said, you had asked about employers asking people to do more, and I wouldn't say that. I would say that they're asking people to do things differently. And from what I've seen, and from uh, what I've read about too, from other companies, is that people they're more empowered. They're actually finding better ways to do things. So, you know, there's customer service folks are coming and asking if, you know, instead of working 8 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30 or whatever it is, you know, they're noticing that more of their clients want to work with them on Sunday afternoons. And they're asking, can I trade my Friday afternoon for a Sunday afternoon when it's going to be a lot busier? And those things are really coming from the employees who are doing the work. So that's where I think that there's a transformation happening in how we do things. And you know, and it kind of depends on the employer too, because obviously you know how I roll. I want to see where the work is and when the best time is to do it. So when I have anybody that I supervise, you know, I've had people come to me and say, you know, there's kind of a dead spot in the day where between 10 and noon where there's not as much going on. Could I take that time and then work more in the afternoon, work say till 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock when there might be more traffic? Absolutely. And I think more supervisors and employers are looking at those things, you know, that maybe wouldn't have looked at it 5, 6 months ago. They maybe would have been a little bit more skeptical. But, you know, with technology now, you can see where that traffic is, and you can see when customers want to work with you. So meet the customers where they're at and be accommodating. And I think things have become much more accommodating.
Good answer.
Well, thank you.
I did just put in the chat that I have found working with students, I tend to get more traction on weekends. Like they'll send me a quick text message and I can just respond quickly if I'm out doing something else. But also working more into the evening, especially for the non-traditional students or the not traditional college age students who are fresh out of high school that are working 2 jobs. The evening is typically when I can catch them. So I've definitely noticed that for myself.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions from anyone? Kyle, this has been wonderful. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Kyle, tell me about your best Zoom bomber. Have you experienced one yet?
It's not exactly a Zoom bomber, but my best experience is my dog is my Zoom bomber. So I have got them on the other side of the house right now, both of them, because for some reason, they can tell if I'm on a session. I don't know how they do it, but that's when they want attention. They could sleep all day, but I could hop on here and one will want to sit on my lap, which some of you have seen in meetings, and the other one will just want to yell at me from the side. So those are my Zoom bombers. I've seen some terrible ones on the internet with other people that have had to deal with some really bad things. But typically what we're doing, we really never put anything out that's public. So we always have that safeguard in place so that if somebody wants to come in and start screaming or doing something silly, they can't. And even if they tried to, we've got, like on this call, we have 3 different people on here that can give them the boot within 1 to 2 seconds. So knock on wood, but haven't had to deal with it myself.
Do we have any other questions this evening for Kyle? If not, I would like to say thank you, Kyle, so much. What a wonderful presentation. I also wanted to say thank you to a couple other folks, the North Country Community College Foundation, for helping us to enhance and maintain a quality educational experience for our students and also for our communities. I'd like to say a special thank you to the Opportunities Committee who has helped put these summer series together, and especially the North Country Enrollment Team for really giving us all of these different platforms and their expertise. We have a wonderful presentation coming up next week. We have Jerry Manor coming back to talk to us about understanding and managing our credit scores. So if you have any information, or if you're looking for information on how and what credit scores are, please consider joining us next Thursday at 7 p.m. I also want to say the month of August is looking very exciting, and we will be talking or seeing presentations on Black history in the Adirondacks. So there'll be discussions on John Brown and on different names and such of the area. So please consider joining us for those as well. And my last thanks goes to you, to all of you, for taking your time in this beautiful Thursday evening and spending it with us. So thank you very much. We appreciate everything. And again, Kyle and Marissa and everyone for joining us, thank you so much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.